My name is Arman. I never believed in ghosts, spirits, or anything beyond what we can see and touch. I was the kind of person who laughed at horror stories and called them imagination. But after what happened to me, I stopped laughing. This story is not something I heard from someone else. I did not read it online. I lived through it. Every second of it. 3 years ago, I was desperate for a job. My father had fallen sick and the medical bills were piling up. I had no savings left. I applied everywhere, but no one was hiring. Then one evening I got a call. It was for a night security job at an old government hospital on the outskirts of the city. The pay was better than anything I had been offered before. Too good, actually. I should have questioned it. But I didn't. When I arrived at the hospital for the first time, it was just before sunset. The building looked old, far older than I expected. The paint on the walls was peeling off. Windows were cracked, and parts of the structure looked like they hadn't been repaired in years. Still, one section of the hospital was active. I could see lights on, people moving around, and hear distant voices. At the main entrance, I met the supervisor, a middle-aged man named Rashid. He looked tired, like someone who had not slept properly in a long time. He handed me a file and said, "Your duty is simple. Stay at the front desk, monitor the cameras, and do rounds every 2 hours." Then he paused and added something strange. "Do not go into the closed wing unless absolutely necessary." I asked him why. He avoided my eyes and said, "Old structure, unsafe." But his voice did not sound convincing. As he was leaving, he turned back and said one more thing. "If you hear anything at night, just ignore it." That sentence stayed with me. If you hear anything, ignore it. What kind of place needs a warning like that? My shift started that same night. At around 10 p.m., the hospital began to quiet down. Visitors left. Lights in some areas were turned off. The active wing still had some movement, but the rest of the building slowly sank into silence. By midnight, it felt like I was alone in a giant empty structure. I sat at the front desk, watching the CCTV monitors. There were 12 cameras in total, covering different parts of the hospital. Corridors, entrances, staircases. Everything looked normal, too normal, the kind of normal that feels forced. At around 1 a.m., I decided to do my first round. I picked up my flashlight and started walking through the corridors. My footsteps echoed in the silence. Every sound felt louder than it should. The walls were covered with old signs, some faded to the point where you could barely read them. Arrows pointing to departments that no longer existed. Pediatrics radiology ward, all of them closed. As I walked deeper into the building, I noticed something strange. The air started to feel colder, not like a normal temperature change. It felt sudden, sharp. I stopped for a moment and looked around. That is when I saw it. A long corridor to my left, completely dark. At the entrance, there was a broken sign hanging, loosely "corridor." See, something about that place felt wrong, even from a distance. I remembered what the supervisor said: "Do not go into the closed wing." I stood there for a few seconds, staring into the darkness. It felt like the darkness was staring back. I quickly turned away and continued my round. When I returned to the front desk, I felt relieved, like I had just avoided something without knowing what it was. The rest of the night passed quietly, or at least, that is what I thought. At exactly 2:13 a.m., I heard a sound, a soft clicking noise. I looked up at the CCTV monitors. One of the cameras had flickered. Camera 7. It covered a hallway near the closed wing. The screen went blurry for a second, then returned to normal. I leaned closer, focusing on the screen, and then I saw something, a shadow. It moved quickly across the hallway, too fast to be a person walking, more like something passing by. I sat back, confused. Maybe it was just a glitch, old cameras, poor wiring. That made sense. It had to make sense. Still, I could not stop thinking about it. I kept staring at the screen, waiting to see if it would happen again. Nothing. The hallway remained empty. Silent. I told myself I was overthinking. At around 3 a.m., I decided to make my second round. This time, I tried to avoid looking toward corridor C, but as I walked, I heard something. A faint metallic sound. Clang. Stopped, listened carefully. Clang it. Came from the direction of corridor C. My heartbeat. Slowed. Every instinct told me to ignore. Just like the supervisor said, if you hear anything, ignore it. But curiosity is a strange thing. It pulls you in slowly. I turned my head toward the dark corridor. The sound came again. Clang, this time louder, like metal hitting metal. I hesitated. Then I made a mistake. I decided to check. Step by step, I walked toward corridor C. The air grew colder with each step. My flashlight flickered once. I tightened my grip on it and kept walking. As I reached the entrance of the corridor, I felt something I cannot fully explain. It was not just fear, it was pressure, like the air itself had weight. I pointed my flashlight. Inside, the beam barely cut through the darkness. The corridor was long doors on both sides, all closed, all silent, except for one. At the very end, a door slightly open, and from inside it, I heard the sound again. Clang. I swallowed, and took my first step inside, not knowing that this was the moment. Everything started to change. I should have turned back. Even now, when I think about that moment, I realize I still had time to walk away. Nothing was forcing me to go inside corridor C. No one was there. No emergency. No reason, except curiosity, and that quiet pulling feeling, like something wanted me to come closer. I stepped into the corridor. The moment I crossed the entrance, the temperature dropped again. This time it was stronger. My hands instantly felt cold, and my breath turned faintly visible in the air. The silence inside was different from the rest of the hospital. It was not empty. It felt occupied. My footsteps echoed, but strangely, the echo felt delayed, like the sound was bouncing back from farther away than it should. I stopped walking. The echo stopped too. For a few seconds, everything was completely still. Then, clang, the sound came again from the open room at the end. I forced myself to keep moving. Step by step, I walked forward, shining my flashlight into each room I passed. Most of them were exactly what you would expect in an abandoned hospital. Section, broken beds, dust-covered floors, old medical equipment walls, stained with time, but something felt off. The dust, it was everywhere except in thin lines across the floor, like something had been dragged through it. I crouched slightly and looked closer. They were not random marks. They looked like footsteps, but not normal ones. They were uneven, as if someone had been dragging one foot behind the other. I stood up quickly. My heartbeat had started to burst. I told myself it could be old marks, maybe from when the place was last used, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. Those marks looked fresh, too. Fresh. Clang. This time the sound was louder. I was closer now, only a few doors away from the open room. My flashlight flickered again, just once, but it was enough to make my chest tighten. I tapped it lightly, and the light stabilized. Then I heard something else, a whisper. Very faint. So faint that I almost thought it came from inside my own head. I could not understand the words, but I knew one thing. It was not coming from the room. It was coming from behind me. Froze. Every muscle in my body locked slowly, very slowly. I turned my head. The corridor behind me was empty. Exactly as it should. Belonged. Dark, silent, no movement, no one there. Let out a breath I did not realize I was holding. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe the silence was playing tricks on me. I turned back toward the room. The door at the end. Room 27 now was standing right in front of it. The door was slightly open, just enough for the darkness inside to spill into the corridor. The way metallic sound was coming from inside, clang, 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 like something gently hitting against metal again and again. I reached out and pushed the door open. It creaked softly. The sound inside stopped. Instantly, the room went completely silent. I stepped in. My flashlight beam moved across the room slowly. An old hospital. Bed in the center, a metal tray beside it, a broken cabinet against the wall. Everything looked still, too. Still. The tray was slightly tilted like it had just been touched, but nothing was moving anymore. I walked closer to the bed. The floor beneath my feet made a soft, crunching sound from the dust. And then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The dust around The bed was disturbed, not everywhere, just on one side, like someone had been standing there recently. Very recently. I raised my flashlight toward the bed. There was a thin layer of dust on it, except in the middle, where it looked like something had been lying. A human-shaped, space clear, undisturbed, as if someone had been there just moments ago and had gotten up. A cold wave ran through my body. I slowly stepped back, and that is when I heard it. Breath right behind me, close too. Close. I turned around instantly. No one. The room was empty, but I could still feel it, that presence, that feeling of not being alone. My chest felt tight. I needed to leave. Now I turned toward the door, and then I saw it. On the inside of the door, scratched into the wood, were words, deep, uneven, like they had been carved in a panic. I moved closer and pointed my flashlight at them. It took me a few seconds to read. Do not stay after 2:13. My throat went dry. I checked my watch. 19 a.m. I had already stayed too long. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped even further. The air felt heavy, hard to breathe, and then the metal tray beside the bed moved, very slowly, without any sound at first, just a slight shift, then it tipped. Clang, the sound exploded. In the silence, I jumped back. My flashlight shook in my hand, and that is when I heard it clearly. A voice, right next to my ear, soft broken whispering, Arman, and I did not look back. I rushed out of the room, into the corridor, my footsteps loud, uneven, desperate. But as I ran, something felt wrong. The corridor felt longer, much longer than before. The exit seemed farther away. No matter how fast I moved, I was not getting closer. My breathing became heavy. My vision blurred slightly. Then I heard it. Again. Footsteps behind me, dragging, slow, but getting closer, closer, closer. I did not turn around. I could not. Every part of me knew. If I looked back, I would see something I was never meant to see. I kept running. My footsteps echoed loudly through the corridor, but something was wrong. The sound did not feel like it belonged to me anymore. It was too heavy, too uneven, almost like there were two sets of footsteps. Mine, and something else. Still, I did not stop. I focused on the faint outline of the corridor entrance ahead. The only goal in my mind was to get out, to reach the main hallway, to get back to the front desk where the lights still worked, where things still felt normal. But no matter how long I ran, the distance did not seem to change. The exit stayed far, unreachable. My breathing became louder, harsher. My chest burned. My legs felt heavy, like something was pulling them back with every step. Then suddenly I stopped, not because I wanted to, because I had to. My body refused to move forward. It felt like I had walked into something invisible, like a wall made of air. I tried to step again. Nothing. I was stuck. The corridor around me went completely silent. No footsteps. No echo. No sound at all. And then slowly, very slowly, I began to hear something new. A dragging sound, right behind me. Closer than before. So close that I could feel it, that cold presence again. Breathing, heavy, broken, right at the back of my neck. My entire body went stiff. My fingers tightened around the flashlight, but I could not lift it. I could not turn around. I stood there frozen. And then something touched my shoulder lightly, but clearly. Not wind, not imagination, a hand cold. I forced myself to breathe, slowly, carefully, and, with every bit of strength I had, I turned around. The flashlight beam shook as it moved behind me. At first, there was nothing, just darkness. Then the light settled, and I saw him, a man standing just a few steps away, wearing a security uniform, old, dirty, stained. His posture was wrong. His head slightly tilted, his shoulders uneven, like something inside him was broken. I tried to speak, but no words came out. He did not move. He just stood there looking at me. Or at least, I think he was, because his face was not clear, looked distorted, as if it did not fully exist, like a reflection in broken glass. but I could still see enough to understand one thing. That was not a normal person. My hand trembled as I raised the flashlight higher. The beam reached his chest, then his neck, then his face, and as the light touched his eyes, he smiled. Not a normal smile. It stretched too far, too wide, like it did not belong on a human face. Then he spoke, but his lips did not move. The voice came from somewhere deeper, somewhere wrong. You came. Back, my heart dropped. I tried to step back. This time I could move just one step, then another. He did not follow. He stayed where he was, still smiling, still watching. Then slowly, he lifted his arm and pointed, not at me, but past me, toward the end of the corridor, toward room 27. I shook my head. No, I whispered it without sound. No, but my body did not listen. My feet started moving, not away from him, but in the direction he pointed, step by step, slow, uncontrolled, like I was no longer the one deciding. My breathing became shallow. My vision narrowed. All I could see now was the door, room 27, still open, still waiting behind me. I could hear him, not walking, not running, just standing, but somehow closer. Every second closer without moving. I reached the door. My hand lifted on its own and pushed it, open wider. The room looked different now, darker. Deeper, the corners of the room felt wrong, like they stretched farther than they should. The bed was still there, but now someone was sitting on it, facing away from me. I froze. My control came back all at once, and with it pure fear. I did not want to go inside. I tried to step back, but again, I could not move. The figure on the bed slowly tilted its head, not fully turning, just enough to show that it knew I was there. Then it spoke, in a weak, broken voice. Help me. That voice. It sounded human, tired and pain. I swallowed hard and forced myself to speak. Who are you? There was a long pause, then the figure answered. I waited. No one came. My chest tightened. I took a step forward, against my own will. What do you mean? Slowly, very slowly, the figure began to turn, and as it did, the light from my flashlight revealed the uniform, security uniform, just like mine. Then the face, and in that moment, everything inside me went cold, because I recognized him, not from memory, but from something deeper, from the stories, from the warning, the missing guard, the one who disappeared. His eyes looked empty, but aware, trapped between something. He stared directly at me and whispered, "Do not let it take you too." Behind me. I heard the other one, the one in the corridor, let out a low, broken laugh, and in that moment I understood. There were not one but two presences in that place, one trying to warn me, and one that never wanted me to leave. I stood there, frozen between the two of them, one inside the room, one behind me in the corridor. For a few seconds, nothing moved. The air felt thick, like it was pressing against my chest, making it harder to breathe. The man sitting on the bed kept staring at me. His eyes were empty, but there was something inside them. Fear, a warning. Do not let it take you too. Those words kept repeating in my head. Behind me, I could still feel the other presence, the one that had smiled, the one that felt wrong. I did not need to turn around to know it was still there. Watching, waiting. I forced myself to speak again, my voice shaking. How do I get out? The man on the bed did not answer immediately. Instead, he slowly lifted his hand and pointed toward the floor, right in front of me. I lowered my flashlight. At first, I saw nothing, just dust. Then slowly, as the light steadied, I noticed something scratched into the ground, a shape, a circle, roughly carved, and inside it, faint markings. I could not understand them, but they looked deliberate, not random. I looked back at him. What is this? His lips moved this time, very slowly. It cannot cross that. A chill ran down my spine. I turned slightly, just enough to glance behind me. The other one was closer now, much closer. standing just outside the doorway, its head tilted again. That same unnatural smile stretched across its face. It took a step forward, then stopped, right at the edge of the room. It did not come in. My heart started racing. It was true. It could not cross. I quickly stepped fully inside the circle drawn on the floor. The moment I did, something changed. The air inside the circle felt still, quieter, like I had stepped into a small space where the pressure was gone. Outside the circle, the air still felt heavy. The thing at the door stared at me. Its smile slowly faded. Its face twisted slightly like something between anger and hunger. Then it spoke, this time clearly. "You cannot stay there forever." Its voice echoed strangely like it was coming from multiple places at once. I did not respond. I kept my eyes on it. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to stay still. Beside me, the man on the bed spoke again. "It wants you to leave the circle." I nodded slightly. "What happens if I step out?" He looked at me for a long moment, then said quietly, "You will not leave." A deep silence followed. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud, fast, unsteady. Minutes passed, or maybe longer. Time did not feel normal anymore. The thing at the door did not move. It just watched, sometimes smiling, sometimes completely still, like it had all the time in the world. I turned back to the man. "There has to be a way out." He nodded faintly. "There is." But his expression changed. Something like guilt appeared on his face. "Only one can leave." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He looked down for a moment, then back at me. "It needs someone to stay." The words hit harder than anything else that night. I shook my head. "No, there has to be another way." He did not respond, because deep down, we both knew there wasn't. The thing at the door suddenly let out a soft laugh, like it was enjoying this. I stepped back inside the circle, my mind racing. There had to be something we were missing. Then I remembered something. The writing on the door. "Do not stay after 2:13." I checked my watch again. It was no longer showing the correct time. The seconds were moving, but the hour was stuck. 13. I looked up slowly. "What happens at 2:13?" The man's face went pale. "That is when it chooses." A cold wave passed through my body. I looked toward the door again. The thing was no longer smiling. It was waiting, patient, certain. I felt panic rising inside me. No, I was not going to stay here. I was not going to disappear like him. I looked at the circle again, then at the door, then at the corridor beyond. An idea formed. Risky, but the only one I had. I took a deep breath and stepped to the very edge of the circle. The moment I did, the thing's expression changed. It leaned forward slightly, interested. I turned to the man. "One last time. I am getting out." Before he could respond, I stepped out of the circle and ran as fast as I could, straight, past the doorway. For a split second, I felt it, that cold presence exploding toward me, reaching, almost touching. But I did not stop. I did not look back. I ran through the corridor. This time, the distance changed. The exit got closer, faster. My footsteps were loud, desperate, real. A corridor behind me filled with that dragging sound, chasing me, getting closer. But I kept running, until finally I broke out into the main hallway. The lights hit my eyes. The normal air rushed into my lungs. And just like that, everything stopped. No footsteps, no presence, no sound. I collapsed near the wall, gasping for breath, shaking alive. I do not remember how long I stayed there, but when I finally stood up, the hospital felt normal again, like nothing had happened. I finished my shift without moving from the front desk, and as soon as morning came, I left for good. Days passed, then weeks. I tried to forget. I really did. But something followed me. At first, it was small things, a sound in the hallway at night, a shadow that moved too quickly. the feeling of being watched. Then, it got worse one night. I woke up suddenly, my room was dark silent. But I felt it, that same cold, that same heavy air. My heart started racing. Slowly, I turned my head toward the corner of the room, and there for just a second, I saw it, that tilted head, that unnatural smile watching me, then it was gone. But the feeling stayed, and sometimes late at night, just before I fall asleep, I hear it again. A whisper soft broken, close to my ear. Arman, you cannot stay there forever, and I still don't know if I really escaped or if it just followed me, waiting for the moment I step out of my circle again.